The next thing that we want to do is to really make this look like it's from Futurama. So I know we need to make fins and that other stuff, and we will definitely do that. But we want these colors to look like it's a cartoon. And there's some amazing things Blender can do to do that. So the first thing that we're going to do is take this here, because we're not doing any animation on this one, on this particular lesson. But you can feel free to look at my others where I animate the ship and do all kinds of interesting things. So what we're going to do is first change this part to shader editor. And this is how we can interact with the materials. The next thing we're going to do, because we want to know what we're actually looking at, is to change this to be the render view. So right now we're using, and make sure that yours is set up like this too, we're using the EB render engine. We're gonna take that all the way down to 10 because we're not doing anything particularly interesting with materials. Well, we are doing things that are particularly interesting, but we're not doing anything that requires a lot of render passes. So the next thing we're gonna do is put our camera in the right place. So I'm gonna go to view here, click lock camera to view. I hit 0 to put us into camera view mode, and I'm gonna put our camera right about here. Now I'm facing it this way because this is faced the same way as the reference image that we have. Yep. So when you have that just the way you want it, you can uncheck this so that it will stay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is take this light, left click to select it, hit G for grab, X, and I'm going to move it to this side of our ship. So now, if I hit 0, you can see that our ship is in fact lit. Now, I'm just going to go in here and change just a little bit because I wish that I could see more of this mirror. Actually, it's probably the camera that's making it so I can't see it completely. So I'm going to hit back to camera view, and I'm just going to come from above here so that we can see more of this windshield when we do the rendering. So now that that's all set, and make sure that you're still in render mode, this is all set, I'm going to select the ship, and I'm going to do one more thing to set up this scene. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to drag. You see how Blender treats me? Oh, I got it on the second time this time, so I'm lucky. So I'm going to change this to UV editor, and here I'm going to pick the render, not the rendered image, the reference image that you have. So I supplied one for you. Right now I'm just using one that I found. You can feel free to use one that you find off the internet, but if I gave you one that I didn't have rights to, they could break into my house and shoot me in the face, and I don't want that, so I'm going to send you one that I actually create. So right now this gives us all the colors that we need, and we're going to use this to color our system here. So right now we don't actually care about the principal BSDF, so I'm going to select that. So when it first comes, both of these will be selected. You want to click off of it, and then you can click on it, hit X to deselect, or sorry, to delete it. Then you're going to hit Shift A, then click search, and under search you're going to type DIFFU, and then click diffuse BSDF. You're going to do that exact same thing again, Shift A, search, and then this time you're going to click shader to RGB. Now the node system works by information flowing. It's actually mathematical information that flows, and certain mathematical operations are done at each of these individual nodes because how the colors and the materials interact with one another are all done based on the number representation of those materials. I'm not going to go into that. That's probably classes and classes worth of information. I'm going to connect the BSDF to the shader to RGB Then I'm going to hit Shift A to add again. I'm going to add a color ramp node. So I'm going to search COLOR, color ramp. Now the color ramp is how we control our shadows. It's actually how we control the colors in general with this particular setup. Now this will give us so this right now is set to blue, which is our window. We didn't actually need it for the blue window, but right now I'm gonna go ahead and set that up. So we're gonna pick the color that we want, and we want it to be, let's go with this color here, right? So we're gonna do this setup for the entire thing. So in order to make sure everything is set the way we want it, it's better if you change it over here, right? So now that we have green, I'm gonna hit X, I'm gonna hit Z to undo that, click off of it first, hit X, and I'm just gonna do that very same thing again. Now, when I do it this time, it'll be a little bit easier to see what it's actually doing, because the mirror doesn't really, the window doesn't really have a lot of area to show you, but the base color of the ship does have lots of area to show you. So I'm just gonna connect these again the same way I did before. So now I have something that is gray, and that makes sense because this is actually set up to give us gray and black. So you can see here, if I move the black, it controls where the shadow is, and this kind of controls where the shadow isn't. But these aren't the colors that we want. So let's go ahead and click here and then click on the white block, and this time we're gonna click the color dropper, and I want you to put the color dropper on the light section of the ship, right? So that makes the ship light here. The next thing you're gonna do is click the plus portion here and make sure that this arrow is selected. Click on the color, and you're going to select the next light portion there. Now we're going to do that one more time, because if you look really close here, we have 3 different colors that are on this hull. And don't worry about this red stripe, we're going to do that as well, but I wanted to do this part because this is kind of the cool part. So we're going to select this one, and we're going to first lighten it up, because if we did anything, it would stay black at that point. We're going to make it even lighter. And we're going to click the color droplet and select the darkest color there. So now this is set up to be almost what we're looking for, but it's not quite. And that's because we have this to be linear. So we want this to be constant. And now you can see it looks a lot more like this cartoon version that we have down here. So the thing we can do, we can actually turn off these overlays to get an even better look at what we have here. Now if we look at this, the shadows aren't quite right. First of all, we only have really 2 here. So we can shift around these to make sure, well, not to make sure, but until we get the look that we're looking for. So on the one on our reference image, there's a much larger, actually, this is not that bad. So on yours, you can kind of just fiddle around with this until you get what you're currently looking for. I think for me, that this makes the most sense. So that looks pretty good to me. I don't think you're going to get it exactly like this, because this was drawn and we're actually using real lights to do this part. So you can move around these different arrows here. That's one way to do it. The other thing you can do, I'm going to turn the overlays back on. You also have control you also have control by moving this light. So in order to get this the way we want it, I'm gonna create another window here. I'm gonna zoom in so you can really look at that one, but I'm gonna go over to this side, and this is where I'm going to move the light. So I'm gonna hit 7 to view from above, G, and you can see that as I move this light around, it controls how it looks. So I think that it's a little bit high, so I'm gonna hit G and then Z to bring it down. And right about there. So I think that's pretty close for us here. 0 to go back into our edit mode. Sorry, into our side view camera mode. So if I go back to the mirror, I don't really think, sorry, the windshield, I don't really think this is the way the windshield should look. So I'm gonna hit this arrow here to open it up, click this links cut button, and then just slice through it. And then I'm gonna say Shift A, I'm gonna hit EM, I'm gonna go click on search, hit EM to get emission. This just means it won't ever have, and I need to click here first, it won't ever have any shadows, right? And unfortunately, I forgot to switch it to the mirror. So I'm gonna go to blue, which is the mirror. I'm gonna do that cut yet again, go back to the first option, hit Shift A, click search, then emission. Now I'm gonna select here. Now that this shader doesn't have any shadows, it's exactly what color we want it to be. Now if you look between this one and this one here, it's very similar, but it's not exactly what we're looking for. And that's because of the color management, how the color management works. So another thing we can do is go to transparent, because we can do a background later, but for right now let's just do transparent. And we need to go to the color management, which is here under the context render, open color management, and you see where this says filmic. This would be really good if we weren't doing a cartoon style render. So we go here and we just want it to be standard, right? So now if you look at this, it looks a lot closer to what you think a cartoon would look like. So if I turn this off and I turn this off, and that, my friends, looks like it's actually been drawn. And there's even more we're gonna do to it to make it look like it's been drawn. And we're gonna do that really quickly. We're just gonna click Freestyle, right? And at first, this doesn't do anything, but if you hit F12, and you look at it, it puts a line around it. So if you look closely at it, it puts a line on it. And we can take this a step further by going into the render paths or render layers part of this, and under line set, we're not going to do a ton with this, but under line style, so under line style, we're going to click thickness, and then under thickness, we're going to make this just a little bit thicker. So now when I hit F12 to render, we get this thicker line, and now it looks a lot like it was drawn. The other thing I selected is material boundary. This will put a line also all the places where we have different materials. So go ahead and select that. Then when you hit F12, we have a line even around these materials. Now you can't tell that this is 3D, so we could do this from any different angle. And then click F12 and it looks drawn. So this is extremely powerful. All right, next thing we're gonna do is do some more modeling for the stripe and the fins.